And it's funny how what desperation would do when we're trying to figure this shit out, and kind of the things that we seek in order to figure it. There's always been something creepy about fortune telling to me, and I've been very curious about it, especially because an ex-lover of mine, she told me that she had saw one, before we kind of got together, or we're fucking around, but just, not living together. And she had asked, about our relationship, and that they had told her that I was going to be with the former lover, or that I was going to fall in love with someone else, someone from my past, which always made me curious because, I was kind of a dog, and I was fucking around with some of my other exes. So when she had told me this, and this is after she had went down, and we're separating, and I asked her, like, did they say who exactly? And she just got so pissed at me, like, motherfucker, it wasn't for you, it was for me, and my dumb ass listened, and that. So I laugh because I know, just like in Zodiac Tales, we want to believe all the good shit, and the bad shit we'll just regard it as, oh no, well, that's stupid. So it scares me on what it would fucking tell me, because whether or not, whatever the reasoning or answer would be, like, can you accept what you're about to hear? And if it's something that's not in your favor, I mean, you can't really erase it. You heard it. It is what it is. But anyways, fortune telling's been going on since the beginning. I mean, the Bible, the Christian non-denominational version of it, states that it's evilness, and I feel like that it is in a way, but then again, so is other spiritual blessings that we get. Just how some people get the power of discernment, some can speak tongues. I mean, isn't it only natural that some can speak with the other side? So it made me look up other, ways that it kind of took into play. And like I said, whether or not you believe in it, fortune telling is one of those things that just naturally has a bit of creepy feel to it. Someone is explaining you in order to try to predict your future. And picturing, fortune telling, we often imagine like a funky lady, examining your palms, reading some tarot cards, saying bomboclat for your tarot card reading. And as it turns out, there's always been real interesting methods, throughout history, and one of them was chicken divination. The ancient Romans would use chickens to help predict the outcome of battles. Priests would scatter bird seeds all over the floor and let specifically trained chickens go eat. It was said that if chickens were enthusiastic and ate the seeds with plenty of excitement, it meant that the Romans would enjoy success in their battle. Another one was bone divination. Bones had been used all over the world throughout history in order to make predictions. Like in Africa, the Zulus would examine the patterns of bones that would tell the fortune of the people. And in China, any questions people had were often carved or painted onto animal bones, and the bones were then thrown into fire until they cracked. And the patterns were then interpreted as the answer to the question. There's actual divination with bread, and I don't know what it is with just the spreading of shit, but in the world of fortune telling, I suppose bread isn't all that weird. However, back in the day, bread was used to help decide whether or not someone was guilty of a crime. Suspects of a crime would be fed a special bread that was blessed, and if they were innocent, nothing would happen. However, if they were guilty, they may experience like stomach pains, or they'd even choke on the bread. I mean, funny enough, sometimes if you thought the bread tasted bad, you were considered to be guilty. It is commonly believed that judges would poison select pieces of bread in order to ensure that certain people were found guilty, so like you're fucked regardless. Another one is gastromancy. And fucking believe it or not, but fortune tellers claim to be able to tell your fortune based on the sounds that the stomach would make. It was hunger. Well, I mean, it was either made by indigestion or hunger were actually the sounds of the dead. And that making noises meant that they were somewhat possessed. And if I be farting the way that I do, then that kind of scares me. God bless. There's divination by pearls, otherwise known as the Margaritomancy? I don't know, but this kind of divination took place in ancient times by people who believed that pearls are magical. A common method of the Marigomancy included the heading of a pearl in a cast iron pot while names of suspects were read out loud. And the name that was called while the pearl began to twitch was like the name of the guilty party. Now, big divination was by human sacrifice, and this is kind of point blank being to the dedication during the show, otherwise known as anthropomancy, and as the form of divination is certainly the most cruel, and ancient cultures were said to have based predictions off of a direction of blood flow as it left the body, the volume of sacrifices, screams, and then even the direction in which victim fell to the floor. Now, there was other divinations by mouse, and mice were used as some ancient cultures as a way of predicting impending doom. Fortune tellers would examine their squeaks, movements, patterns, and things that they would gnaw at in order for the prediction of the near future. There is also divination of, jeweled rings. So divination by jeweled rings typically require like 7 rings, so some pimpans, one for every day of the week. They would be needed in order to make the different materials. Though it isn't clear exactly how the rings were caused, they'd assumed that a ring was suspended over the board of letters, and each letter is touched with the message similar to the Ouija board. Another one was based on metals, microbomancy, the first used in ancient Romans and Greeks, and they were meant to like melt tin and lead and then pour the liquid metal into water. They would instantly solidify into odd shapes, and then that's how they examined for answers. For the most real one, this one I was waiting for, is divination by poo. That's right, poo. Plenty of ancient cultures used to examine poo in order to fucking make the proper, or in order to answer from the beyond. None took this more serious than the ancient Egyptians. They examined feces as well as dung beetles, and marks made by the beetles as well as their movements and mannerisms were often used to help get answers to whatever questions they had. So that whole saying that ain't no bull, it's shit, is correct. See, it also makes me kind of wonder too, like what is meant to be, and there's really no stopping. Even if you try to fucking make a turn, I feel like the universe and the agents that work within it will make a fucking glitch in the system and will make it right. It almost kind of runs into where, like, there's a certain point where, man, I did everything within my power to cheat. The universe would just not allow it. And I think it's because, Laura's a female. But I came across a couple stories of, like, real creepy, glitches in the Matrix system kind of stories. And in the stage whether we live in, these 10 stories definitely fucking prove it. So there's a guy in a relationship with a woman named Susan, and she had a dream that he cheated on her. Now, in his dream, he was having sex with his ex when he looked over and saw Susan standing outside the window crying. He forgot about the dream until a few days later when Susan said she had a weird dream a few days before. She proceeded to describe the exact same dream from her viewpoint of a view through the window. So it almost seems like fucked up, like he did his damnedest not to do the damn deed. And for that to, I'm pretty sure it bit him in the ass, because I get in trouble for dreams that did not happen. So yeah. Another one was an off-duty EMT was making his way home through a storm when he saw a Mercedes with its hazard lights on, parked, past a barricade. And he stopped his car, walked over to it. Shining a light in the back seat, he saw a man slumped over, like he was sleeping. He thought it might have been a bunch of drunk people sleeping it off until he saw the man in the driver's seat. He was sitting upright, staring straight ahead, not moving, blinking or responding to taps in the window. The other passenger was slumped forward on the dashboard. Fully creeped out, he walked away to call the sheriff's department. They asked him for a license plate number, but a large truck was coming down the road, so he had to wait for it to pass before he could get back over to his car, or back over to the car. And when he did, the car was gone. There were trees in one direction and barricades in the other, so the man could not figure out how the car and its strange passengers could have just disappeared. Another one was a guy waiting for the train with the woman. When a woman with glazed eyes asked him for money, saying her brother was in the hospital and that she wanted to buy him flowers. He figured she was probably lying, but he gave her $5 anyway. And when he gets on the train, so I guess he gets on the train, and when it pulls up, as it's leaving, he sees the woman through the window asking other people for money for those roses. 15 minutes later, he gets off the train and walked to his bus stop, and his bus arrived on time, and he got on the road for about 10 minutes, and then the bus made a stop. And who do you think walked on? The woman from before, except this time she had a dozen roses with her. She looked right at him as she passed by by to find a seat, and he was in complete shock how she had time to get flowers and arrived when he, caught the train before her and saw her as he pulled away. So he had caught the only bus going in that particular direction. That shit, he can't fucking explain, just literally just hopping off, getting back on, and there she was. I mean, unless she just saw the flowers picked there on the side of the road and she got to pocket the money. I mean, whatever the fucking reason, that's fucking trippy, I definitely think. Now, a boy and his mom were taking pictures of old cars to sell in a woodsy area by their backyard when suddenly they heard a rustling in the bushes. So his mom told him to run. So he did, and as he was running, he heard a clanking sound as if someone or something had jumped on the cars. Now, when he got to his house, panicking and flourished, only to find his mom reading the paper at the table. And he asked his mother about it as an adult, and she says that she remembers having cars in the backyard that she sold, but she doesn't remember the incident happening at all. Another one, a guy was riding in his car with some friends on the way home from a road trip. He told his parents about 25 minutes away when they called, and shortly after they went around the bend and saw a full moon and its reflection in the lake below. The road was completely empty with no cars, and suddenly everything went pitch black for a moment. Not even the music was playing. Then the CD was back, playing from the beginning, and there now was a car pulled over by a cop just up the road, and it hadn't been there like a split second earlier. He figured he had fallen asleep for a brief period of time until the driver of the car, said that he thought he'd just fallen asleep too. And they tried to figure out what happened, and the creepiest thing was that the clock read an hour later than it had just moments before. They had convinced themselves that the car's electric system must have somehow reset the clock. But then they got to his house 25 minutes later, where he was an hour late, and they still had no idea what had happened. So and I don't know, I forget the name of the movie. If it's kind of like Minority Report, but it has Matt Damon in it. And I think it was called The Bureau, where it pretty much had like these agents, and they would kind of step in and try to stop these people from meeting, because Lord knows that when there's a connection, that connection is not going to be ignored unless there's a stronger, more easier, more convenient kind of connection to allure. And I feel like that's how simple some things are able to be maneuvered. Like, you really had to be feeding for something and stay on it in order to be able to get it. And I feel like that's where perseverance really comes in, or just the power of fates. There's another story where a man would pass through a shopping mall every morning on his way to work. And every morning there would be an elderly man sitting on a bench. He seemed pretty normal, but he always appeared to be waiting for someone. And he saw this man every day for 4 years. But that person never came. And then he got a new job in a totally new part of town. And a few days into working, he walked up the subway to find the same guy sitting on the bench. Another story where someone recalls a toy their dad had, a little monkey that he used jokingly, says was his favorite child. And it was an ongoing family joke, and the kids would all play along trying to steal the monkey. And one day they drew all over it with a Sharpie and threw it in the trash. Their dad looked for it, but gave up when they realized they had thrown it out. And a few years later, this person was walking through Toronto when they saw an orange object on the side of the road. It was the same toy monkey, complete with the same Sharpie lines. How did the toy get all the way from Toronto, from their local dump, to to nowhere near the city? So that's kind of weird. There's another story of a man who walked in the kitchen of his job one morning and no one was there. Usually they'd have a buffet of eggs and bacon for breakfast, so it wasn't strange that there was a carton completely filled with a dozen freshly boiled eggs on the table. So he grabbed one, walked over to the trash can to peel it, walked back, and then he froze. There were 12 eggs on the tray again. No one entered the room when he touched the mystery egg. It was the same temperature as the rest. So that's fucking weird. Now another story where a man and his wife were coming home from dinner one night. When the husband opened the door, he saw his wife sitting at the computer working. Yeah, I read that right. A man and his wife had gone to dinner. They came home at the same time and were walking into the house at the same time when he saw her sitting at the computer while they were getting ready for bed. He told her what had happened, and she got very serious. She had seen it too. I don't get that. I really don't. Now there's another where someone had recalled a time when they were 15 and had a dream that was just blackness and talking. It was a dream. She could hear her mom saying things like, "You're doing great. It's gone." It didn't mean anything to her until a few months later when she had to go to the hospital because her earrings were embedded inside her earlobes, and she had to get them removed. And they applied some kind of freeze spray, and it accidentally got into here, making contact with the eardrum, and it knocked her out. But she could still hear, and her mom was saying the exact same things that she had heard in that dream. So there's just certain fucking shits to where it's like deja vu, for example. They say that when that happens, it's like a hint from the universe kind of telling you that you're on the right path. And as much as you wouldn't want to have to repeat yourself, sometimes I think we miss things, kind of like a fucking train. Like it'll go around again. If we're lucky, we'll still be alive to catch it when it comes around. But that's what happens. I feel like when you have those deja vu moments, there's little synchronicities, little shits and little details that tell you that hopefully you're on the right path, or that this day was coming. And it's hard to label those things, hard to remember them sometimes, because like I said, we get caught up with so much bullshit. Like I know I feed myself not only trash and food, hopefully trying to get healthier, but also just bits of information that really would, I don't know how it's gonna save somebody or help one day. You know what I'm saying? Am I in a goddamn game show host? You know what I'm saying? Who knows where those things come from? That's why I think everything that we put into us, it needs to be at its purest. It needs to be someone that knows, I'm gonna hit you